In April, the Ukrainian government declared an anti-terrorist operation in response to a pro-Russian rebellion which had begun in the east. The ATO has led to a partial mobilization of the regular army, but it has also seen the emergence of volunteer battalions. This means that ordinary men with little military experience spend their own money and equipment and go off, ill-equipped, to war. Though the conflict is isolated to one area, the crisis has had repercussions across Ukraine. It has torn apart livelihoods and families, taking with it the most vulnerable victims of this crisis, the children. We travelled to the Carpathian Mountains in the west of Ukraine to visit an orphan camp which has opened its doors to children whose parents are fighting on the front line. The camp is run by a Canadian NGO, Help Us Help the Children, and has been running for the past 20 years as part of a joint Canadian-Ukrainian initiative. We've just arrived at the camp and we've just been told that 2 of the girls have already had to go home because as they were coming here on the train, the news came in that their father had been shot down on the front line. Now, the counsellors have just said that they're fully prepared for this to happen again in the next 2 weeks because of the number of ATO children at the camp.
So the second day in the camp here, and we're about to go up right into the mountains, and to get there we're actually going to take
These kids, they come from all these different backgrounds, geographic backgrounds. They're from right across Ukraine, and they're stuck in this mud bowl. It's been pouring rain for 3 days, and they do the activities, they do the games, they do the workshops, the life skills, the sports, and they just bond instantly.
The camp is surrounded by this kind of environment in the mountains. It's totally isolated from any other village, and it's in a totally different environment to what some of these kids will be experiencing in their everyday lives in the east, in the war zone.
Мій брат десь під Луганськом, під самим Луганськом десь, в самому пеклі, як кажуть.
Мій отчим також в Луганську, він майор, він веде солдатів, вони були в Слов'янську, визволили Слов'янськ, пішли, визволили Луганськ, що там було заблокіровано.
Справжні
Чергу ми
герої.
хвилюємося за них, тому що невідомо, повернуться вони чи ні.
Ну, можна сказати лише, щоб все швидше пройшло, тому що це не добре, так сказати.
The children aren't the only ones to have escaped the war zone. Serhiy is a Ukrainian volunteer who almost lost his life fighting the riot police on Maidan. He now continues his fight on the front line of the Azov battalion in the east.
З січня місяці до цього часу, до цього табору постійно зустрічався з несправедливістю, мені приходилось бити людей, мене били, стріляти, мене стріляли. І зараз приїжджаю на табір, тут всі добрі, всі хороші, всі щирі, приємні, і я не міг до кінця адаптуватися, але тепер вже,
А як так сталося, що ви повернулися до табору?
Я приїхав в батальйон і як вже під керівництвом, я вже не можу нікуди піти самовільно. І до мене телефонують, все, ми вас чекаємо на таборі. В той момент я кажу, будемо супроводжувати тих, що вивезуть, можливо, з Донецька і так далі. І насправді мені сказали, що я знав, що я тут повинен бути, бо тут діти, 2 дівчинки, які сюди їхало, їх тато загинув по дорозі, потім сюди приїхали. І це вже було, я з ним поговорив, пообіцяв помститися за батька.
We're about to go and have lunch with the kids now, and we're hoping to talk to Anya, who's 12, and her father is currently fighting in Donetsk as part of the anti-terrorist operation.
Тато в Донецьку захищає Україну.
Бере участь в АТО? А де він служить, в армії чи в батальйонах волонтерських?
Якщо я не сумніваюсь, то десь в батальйоні якомусь.
А що ти взагалі думаєш, що те, що батько пішов захищати Україну, ти пишаєшся цим фактом, що він це робить? І як ти думаєш, коли це все нарешті завершиться, що можна буде нарешті просто продовжувати життя?
Я думаю, в ближайший час краще б, щоб воно закінчилося. І тато, щоб повернувся додому.
Дякую тобі дуже. Дякую. І я бажаю всього самого найкращого тобі і твоїй родині, щоб батько, звичайно, повернувся і все було добре. Дякую дуже.
just great to see how integrated all the kids are. You've got the kids with hearing disabilities, you've got Tatar children, the kids whose parents are fighting in the anti-terrorist operation. They're all sort of interacting together and eating together and spending time together, getting to know each other and each other's stories. And I think that's what is so interesting about this camp, is this emphasis on unity and the fact that Ukraine is one nation full of different people, but ultimately one big family.
It is really cool that we open the door to all the other kids in Ukraine, especially the kids with the parents on the front lines, because they do need help. Everybody needs a hand. Everybody needs somebody to hear them out. Everybody needs support. Everybody needs somewhere to have a good laugh, and this is the place for those kids.
One of the primary functions of this year's camp is to provide psychological support for children who have endured particularly traumatic experiences, especially those living in the conflict zone. Getting the children to open up and express themselves is one of the hardest tasks.
The important thing is that we want to show these kids that there are people who care about them, that love them, that we do not forget about what's happening in Ukraine, what's happening to families. We want to give these kids 2 weeks of absolute joy, because we know where they're returning and how difficult it's going to be. We also want the kids to understand that it doesn't matter whether you're from the north, whether you're from the south, the east or the west, Ukraine is one family and everybody is equal in our eyes.
And the camp takes a noticeably pro-Ukrainian stance. So the question remains, what happens to the other children, those of the rebel fighters? Some may have already crossed the border into Russia, but for others there is no escape.